The Jets, they're 2 games into the preseason, and after a tough 31-12 loss to the Giants, questions are starting to pile up. The offense, they looked out of rhythm. Justin Fields still hasn't been fully cut loose, and defensive depth is being tested with some big names on the sideline in Saturday's matchup against the Giants. So to help us break it all down, what this means for Gang Green, we're going to welcome in the host of the Jake Asman Show, also a diehard Jets voice, Jake Asman joins me now. Jake, what's going on?
Dex, always good to join you. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure to talk some Jets with you, man. And it's preseason, and it's about to get real really soon. But, Jake, the Jets, they didn't get much going offensively in that 31-12 loss to the Giants that we saw on Saturday night. What troubled you the most about the offensive effort as a whole for Gang Green?
I say this with the caveat that they only had 2 total drives with the first team offense out there, but they just look out of sync. It looked like there were a couple communication errors up front, rewatching it with some of the blocking assignments on some of the failed runs. You had a high snap by Joe Tippmann that I think contributed to an incompletion by Fields. I thought Fields himself missed a pass to Garrett Wilson that ended a drive. That was the Nick Folk field goal drive. It just felt like there was no rhythm. They obviously couldn't get anything going downfield. The one positive was they ran the ball really well, but only 2 drives. Obviously, the numbers don't look great, but that's why it's the preseason, and I would have loved to have seen, maybe another drive from the starting offense. They only played 2 total series, and there was still 38 seconds left in the first quarter when Adrian Martinez came in for Justin Fields. But it was a disappointing showing. Obviously, Glenn talked about it after the game. The passing attack, which was a concern coming into the year, it's been up and down throughout the summer. And, of course, last night was one of those times it was certainly down.
Yeah, definitely was one of those times. And you mentioned Fields, and that makes me want to go there next because he hasn't really been cut loose as a passer through these first 2 preseason games. Do you think Aaron Glenn and his staff are being too conservative, with him early on? Do you think they need to open it up a bit more for Justin Fields and his offense?
It's tough to say because obviously it's such a short sample size of drives we're talking about, right? A week ago, every Jet fan was very encouraged with their opening drive against the Packers where they did go down the field and Fields ran in a rushing touchdown and they moved bodies in the run game. Braylon Allen was good, and Fields, he took it with the defense was giving him that night. He checked it down to Andrew Beck, who ended up being, the Jets' leading receiver in the game, the fullback of all players. But you look at what happened last night. I think there were some opportunities to maybe make some plays, but they were just out of sync. I think there were some issues with the blocking up front. Yeah, I mentioned the high snap from Joe Tippmann. I think ultimately, if they play against the Eagles on Friday, it'd be nice to see some downfield passing attempts. I'd love to see Fields and Garrett Wilson at least have some sort of big completion in one of these preseason games, and there's only one left. But I think it was a legit concern coming into camp outside of Garrett Wilson, who could really emerge as a legit pass catcher on the outside. And I think as we sit here now, 3 weeks to go till the opener, I think those questions still exist on who besides Garrett Wilson can really step up and help Justin Fields have someone to throw the ball to.
Yeah, not as a fair point in the fact that he doesn't seem, at least of now, to have that much help in terms of who he's going to get the ball to. Now, on the other side of the ball, Jake, Sauce Gardner, Will McDonald, Quinnen Williams, they all did not play against the Giants. So the Jets defense showed some gaps in depth, particularly against the Giants' second unit. How concerned should fans be about that lack of depth maybe on the defensive side heading into the regular season?
It was 7-6 at halftime. So despite, the one big completion that the Giants had from Russell Wilson to Collins in that first half, I think when you take a step back and look at it, Andre Cisco just missed assignment there in cover 3. Outside of that big breakdown, I thought the Jets defense was fine for a while. I was thinking about it like this. When you're facing the Giants in the preseason, and they have Jameis Winston, who's been the first pick in the draft and has won a lot of games in the league out there in the fourth quarter. Then they go to Tommy DeVito, who obviously has won games in the league, not to mention Dart looking really good. I think it's just a tough matchup. The depth on the Jets defense is certainly a question mark going into the year. I think there's a lot of talent there, but it could get thin very quickly, especially on the defensive line. But I think overall, this defense is super talented. I think they're well coached. We did see guys like Brandon Stevens and Michael Carter make plays, so I think that's encouraging. If you're a Jet fan, those guys are vital to that secondary with Sauce Gardner hopefully returning to what he was his first 2 years where he was a first-team All-Pro. So I still feel very good about the defense. I think it's going to be the strength of this team. That said, if there's some injuries like what we're dealing with this summer, there are some legit concerns, I think, with the depth going forward for this team.
Yeah, there could be, especially some of the guys I mentioned are not there, but you hope everything's right and they're able to compete starting in week 1. But last thing for me, Jake, when you look at the big picture, after 2 preseason games, where do you think the Jets stand right now in terms of being ready to compete in the AFC, and how far off are they from where you thought they'd be at this point?
I looked at this team and felt like, hey, like their ceiling is probably capped as far as being a playoff team or certainly, being a legit contender because there's just so many questions with Justin Fields as a quarterback, right? We're talking about a guy on his third team in 3 years. He's never been average in the league. He's shown you flashes, he's given you moments, but there's a big question with that. You're talking about a first year head coach who I like in Aaron Glenn. I think he's done a really good job trying to change the culture so far, but he's still in that honeymoon phase, and we don't truly know what he is just yet. Tanner Angstrand, I've been impressed with some of the play designs and what he's trying to do with this offense. But once again, first time play caller. So uncertainty at quarterback, first time head coach, first time offensive play caller. There's just a lot of questions. So while I do think the Jets' talent is there for them to be competitive, I think game in, game out, I don't know if they're going to be able to score enough points in today's NFL. So I think they could be a scrappy 6-7 win team, and maybe if Fields is a lot better than I personally expect them to be, they could be better than that. But are they ready to be competitive? I think the answer to that is yes. I think they fixed kicker with Nick Folk. That should help them win some tight games. I think they can run the ball. They've proven that throughout the summer, including last night. I like the Brees Braylon Allen combo out of the backfield. They have pieces. I think it really comes down to, though, what type of quarterback play week in, week out are you getting from Justin Fields? And as we talked about, there's a lot of questions there going into the year.
A lot of questions going into the year. Jets fans, the optimistic ones, they don't want to hear 6 or 7 wins. I know that, but I think when you look,
I don't want to hear it either. I hope I'm wrong.
this is fair. This is fair. I know you don't want to hear it either. Some people may say lower, some people may say higher, but you're right. A lot of questions around the quarterback play. But this is why they play the games. We are 3 weeks away from the start of the NFL season, and we'll see how that all pans out for the Jets. They do have one more preseason game to go on Friday against the Eagles. That is Jake Asman, host of the Jake Asman Show. Please check him out there. Jake, always a pleasure to talk some Jets football with you, and talk to you soon.
Likewise. Appreciate you having me.